When I, 19 female, was 3, I was diagnosed with cancer. Of course, I don't remember this time or any of the first couple of years of treatment, and my memory of medical stuff even after is a little fuzzy. However, I am aware of the fact that my parents devoted a lot of time, money, and attention to me when I was newly diagnosed and when treatment started, for the first 3 years or so actually. It made my siblings very jealous, and it sounds like my parents emotionally abandoned them and made them feel selfish for having wants and needs while I was sick. I don't remember any of it, but I have been told enough about those times. That jealousy turned into resentment, and it fractured the relationship between us. They didn't see why being sick meant that they had to lose their parents, and I totally get that. At some point, my parents also started to resent me for taking up so much time. The switch flipped with my parents, and it seemed to line up with the time when I was really sick from all the treatments and being dragged around the country to our local hospital and a children's hospital. My mom mentioned a few years ago that I was ungrateful for all they had done, and had told them that I didn't want the medicine anymore. This is not a memory that I have, but I do remember feeling so tired as a really young kid. By the time I got better, I was tiny. I had trouble with food and had not lived a very normal kid life. My life had been medical procedures and chemo and other medication, but the cancer went and it hasn't come back so far. My parents were very temperamental with me. They would get angry and frustrated if I needed help with homework or had a problem at school. I couldn't say anything about needing their help without it being very clear they were angry. My siblings remained very distant. My parents would try to make it up to them sometimes, and other times they got similar treatment to me, just maybe a little less harsh than my parents were with me. They may have been way more harsh with them when I was sick. It was toxic, and every time I tried to reach out to my siblings and say how sorry I was for what had happened, they made their stance clear, and I knew they didn't want me in their lives. They all moved out over several years ago, and I don't have any contact with them now. I tried again after I moved out and was ignored. I had no contact with my parents over a year ago and moved out. It's been great, but they reached out to me on social media a few weeks ago and told me Dad's 60th birthday party is soon, and I need to be there. I ignored the first message, so they sent it again, and they told me that it was an order and I needed to do this for them, that I needed to make it up to them. I replied that I was tired of being punished for having cancer and would not help them keep up a facade. They called me ungrateful, spiteful, and selfish, and I had no idea how much they had sacrificed for me. I blocked them, but their words have made me question myself. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. No child chooses to get cancer. It just happens. Your parents are human, so of course it was hard, but that's no excuse to punish you for the rest of your life by treating you poorly. Your life sounds like it's been challenging from the start. Do whatever you need to do to be happy, and don't spend any energy on people who would treat you so poorly over something you had zero control over. Honey, I'm so sorry you've gone through all that. I would do exactly what you've done. Maybe your being sick destroyed your family, but that isn't your fault. It's cancer's fault, and your parents handling it so poorly. I can somewhat imagine what they went through. I've seen cancer take my best friend and so many others, but how they handled it was wrong and not your fault or responsibility. If anything, it's your parents' fault for not giving enough attention to your siblings. I would add that your siblings are idiots. They're grown-ups now. It's not their fault that they adopted your parents' attitude toward you when they were children, but as adults, they should realize what happened and not blame you. Ooh, and tell them exactly where to put their order. You're a grown woman living on your own, and the fact that your parents still think you're going to respond to demands is laughable. Block, block, and block some more. I pray for your continued good health. My wife, 59, and I, 62 male, have 3 kids, 31 male, 26 male, 24 female, but they never talk to me or their mother at all. They never call us, text us, come to visit, or simply ask how we're doing. And my wife and I both really hate this because we've been great parents. We both get that they're all adults, but they could at least say hi, even just once a month, but they never do. It's incredibly hurtful as a father, and my wife feels the same way. We love our children, and we did the best we could to raise them, just to be completely ignored by them in return. If we were bad parents who did something horrible to them, I'd understand, but we were never bad parents, so both my wife and I just don't get this. We decided that we wanted to plan a dinner and invite all three of them over so that we could be a happy family again because we missed them, but they all ignored our invitations. My wife was so sad about this, but I was mad at this point. All we wanted was for us to be a family, and they all rejected us. We raised them, gave them a home, food to eat, a bed to sleep on, and paid for their education, health care, and clothes. And in return, this is what we got? Are my wife and I the idiots? Sir, all three kids ignore both of you? Come on. I know something happened that caused them to cut contact. Bad parents rarely recognize or acknowledge that they were bad parents. The fact that all of your children went no contact, that's pretty darn telling right there. Usually it's one or two kids, while the golden child stays close. But if every single child goes no contact, that tells me there were major issues across the board that you're pretending weren't real problems. Dude, you met the bare minimum requirements of having kids and housing and feeding them. But if all three ignore you and don't respond to your invitations, then you might need to spend some time reflecting on why. Have you tried to ask them calmly and in a non-accusatory way why they don't contact you guys? And have you communicated verbally that it would mean a lot for them to spend time with you? Or maybe you did nothing except the bare minimum. How is your relationship with their significant others? Because I noticed you said you only invited the 3 kids. I find it hard to believe that all your kids are single. I also noticed you wanted kids' night to be a happy family together again. If this is a common occurrence and their significant others are always left out, this is your problem. You're not accepting and respecting the relationships they're in. This is a surefire way to get a child to go no contact by treating the significant others horribly. I have a different take. If none of your kids even responded to your invite, then there are 2 possibilities. You did something to your kids that makes them not want to contact you, or you did a crappy job raising your kids and they're all idiots. OP needs to tell us the real story of how they treated their kids. Feeding, clothing, and a roof over their heads are basic necessities. My husband, 30, and I, 26 female, recently married. I invited my friend Lizzie, 27 female, who was a bridesmaid at my wedding. A few days before the wedding, she told me the good news. She was pregnant. I was obviously over the moon for her and celebrated. She told me she was going to announce it at my wedding reception. I told her I was super happy for her and this new chapter of her life, but this was my day. This was my one special day. She can tell people literally tomorrow, but she can't tell anyone on my wedding day. I know I sound selfish, but my now husband and I have been waiting for this moment for years, and I don't want to share it. I want it to be my one day. Anyway, the day of the wedding comes, and she makes her speech. At the end of her remarks, Lizzie takes ultrasound pictures from her pocket and says, "I'm having a baby," and then goes and sits down. Everyone congratulates her, and I brought her aside and said, "What the heck did you do that for?" And her excuse, "But you announced your pregnancy the week I got engaged." I told her to leave. She didn't believe me. I told her she was pregnant, so she was definitely sober, so she could drive herself home. It was the most fantastic night, but I feel I may have been too harsh on her. But in the moment, I felt very much like it was my only choice. Anyway, am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You clearly expressed your boundaries and what you wanted from her on your special day. This was done without ambiguity. She clearly ignored what you asked of her, And indeed, rather than telling odd people here and there during the reception, she grandstanded about it during a speech that should have been about the subject at hand, you and your wedding. It must have felt like a complete betrayal, which on your wedding day would have been difficult to take. Everyone knows you don't make announcements on other people's special day. I know etiquette changes over the years, but that rule still sticks. She definitely knew better in this case because you specifically asked her not to. Waiting until another day would not have made her announcement any less exciting, but doing it at your wedding took some of the spotlight from you, at least temporarily. Very selfish of her and in poor taste. Nah, this was revenge, pure and simple. Lizzie was enraged. OP announced her pregnancy the same week Lizzie, got engaged. And instead of being an adult and talking to OP about it, she deliberately tried to spoil OP's wedding day. In any case, Lizzie's not a friend, and she's not a person worth having in your life, OP. You're within your rights to end this friendship. At the weekend, my uncle passed away. I had not seen him in a few years, but when I was a child, we used to be quite close, and I used to be really close to his children. It was obviously upsetting for me to hear. I scheduled a meeting with my manager at work to tell them what had happened and explain that I would need time off for the funeral. When I met with my manager, she said it was company policy to take at least 3 days off for a bereavement, but she asked if I thought I would need a bit longer. I said I wasn't sure at the moment, and my manager asked if I would prefer a week. I said as long as it was okay with her, then yes, a week would be good, and it would allow me to see family before the funeral and offer help. I mentioned this to my girlfriend, and she mentioned that she didn't think I was that upset to need a week off and asked if I was holding up okay. I told her I was upset, but not completely broken, since my uncle and I hadn't been close in years. She asked if I would be spending the week with family, and I told her that I'd spend a few days with family, but that I'd probably take a couple of days for myself and just stay home and have some time alone. She accused me of misleading my work to get more time off, but I pointed out that it was my manager who suggested a week, not me. I would have accepted 3 days. She said I was exploiting a family tragedy to get extra annual leave. I disagreed with her and said it's hardly like I'm using my time off for a holiday and that I shouldn't have to spend it all with family for it to be acceptable. But she said what I did was horrible. Am I the idiot for exploiting a family tragedy? Not the idiot. She accused me of misleading my work to get more time off. Excuse me, what? Is she your boss or in any way impacted by your time off? Who gives a crap? Take whatever time that they'll give you. Let me guess. When a family's gone for the evening on Halloween and leaves a big bowl of candy on a table for the trick-or-treaters, you're the guy who takes 2 giant handfuls or more. I mean, they offered it, right? You are the idiot. You are taking advantage of a boss who's trying to be kind and accommodating. You're exploiting an offer of time for bereavement to use it for personal time off. Morals and ethics aren't hard to have. Do better. Jesus, what's wrong with you people? How you grieve is how you grieve. If you need to spend time with your family, take a few days off for yourself, you'll do just that. It's as if we don't get gaslit enough by the companies we work for. LOL. OP, your work offered it, so clearly they can accommodate it. And it's not your girlfriend's business. I'm an introvert and would need time to process and decompress alone. Your girlfriend sounds like a total harpy. Your uncle just passed, and she's angry and jealous that you get bereavement leave. Watch out. She might call your work and complain that you're not grieving enough to satisfy her morbid idea of what is the right or wrong way to get those extra 2 days off. Backstory. I, 26 female, got engaged this summer to Will, 29 male. To provide some context to where the rift started, here's the abbreviated version of our family dynamics. Will's family is very well off, stable, and well educated. My family is a complete disaster. My grandma raised me, and I've been supporting everyone financially since college. Will's parents, Mary and John, have always been nice to me. Mary pulled me aside at the engagement party and said, "You don't have to worry. Our family will cover the wedding." At the time, this sort of rubbed me the wrong way for a few reasons. The presumption of it all, the idea that we wanted a wedding, etc. Although Mary is very sweet to me and clearly excited to have me become part of their family, which I'm thankful for, she can be overbearing sometimes. Even though I honestly didn't want a wedding, after talking it through with Will, I agreed to have the big wedding that both of his sisters had. For the first time in our relationship, we spent the holidays with my grandmother. To make it up to his parents, we celebrated fake Christmas during the MLK weekend with Mary and John. During the weekend, Mary scheduled us for a session with the wedding planner. During the entire wedding process, I've allowed Mary to do most of the work. She's tried to include me but enjoys the process, so I let her have it. During the session, it came out that they've budgeted $300K for the wedding. When I found this out, I freaked out. I kept my composure with the wedding planner but let loose in the car home on Mary. Although I was polite, I made it clear that I was uncomfortable spending that much money and made several judgments about how it could be better spent. I told Mary that she could not understand how most people live, including my own family, and brought up several religious arguments about how the money should be spent on charity. We're both Christian. Mary was very offended by this. She argued that her family donates to charity, that the wedding cost will fund the community, and that I'm in no place to judge, as we both live better than most people in the world, and I own luxury items. I didn't think the argument was that big of a deal until we returned home from the weekend last night. Will told me that his entire family was angry with me for insulting his mother, and that they think I'm biting the hand that feeds me. I owe his mother an apology. During this argument, he yelled at me for the first time in our relationship. He also said, "Just because your family is messed up doesn't mean you can bring it out on me." Am I the idiot? You are the idiot here. First, you behaved rudely towards your future mother-in-law, and the way you told it, she was caught unaware. You've chosen not to actively be involved up to that point, and then did a hard 180 the minute you heard the number. If you've agreed to have the big wedding both his sisters had, they likely spent the same on each of those. I understand you're uncomfortable with the idea of that amount of money being spent on an 8-hour day, but it's not your money, and you don't get to try to pseudo-guilt trip her with religious and spiritual manipulation. If you don't want $300K spent on your wedding, then that's absolutely your prerogative, but it doesn't excuse your letting loose in the car at her. Obviously, the two of you have both been speaking English, but not speaking the same language. There's a more appropriate, adult, respectful, and polite way to have the conversation and stand your ground. This was not it. $300K is a small wedding for rich people. My cousin married a big-time politician's son, and their wedding had about 500 to 600 guests. They basically rented out a whole Marriott hotel. These kinds of events are also schmoozing moments for these families. It's not what you know, but who you know. My cousin and her husband took home more than their parents invested in their wedding. This is so true. Rich people have extravagant six-figure weddings for a reason. It's also, in a way, payback time for all that the groom's and bride's parents gave to their friends' kids in the past. It's reciprocity, and it's very important in that world. OP, it's understandable that you'd be uncomfortable with the budget, but how you handled this was abysmal. Look, you don't have to have a big wedding. You don't have to spend $300K, which is a lot of money. But I don't think you can sit back, let Mary plan everything, and then complain about what she has planned. Either take charge of your own wedding plans or accept that others have planned things how they like them. If you're so proud of pulling yourself out of poverty and going to college, use that degree and learn to communicate and not be passive-aggressive.